You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 133. When you think of selling your products or services, what comes to mind? Do you feel icky about it? Do you struggle promoting yourself because it feels pushy? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into how we can sell more naturally while empowering our audience with the decision, without the sleazy sales tactics that we know and hate. So let's jump right in. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Milana Sarenac, founder of Empower Sales Academy, where she helps online coaches and service providers capture the intention of their ideal clients, build trust, and confidently sell their offers without using any sleazy sales tactics. She is also the host of the incredible podcast Magnetic with Milana Sarenac, where she shares her best sales tips, launch strategies, mindset hacks, and behind-the-scenes secrets of building a magnetic online business so that you too can escape the hamster wheel and build a wildly successful online coaching business that you love. Now, I am obsessed with you. I am very much against the whole sleazy sales tactics, and I love the approach that you take. So I'm super excited to get to know you more and learn more about your advice and your expertise. So welcome, Milana. I'm just so honored to have you as my guest. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure. And yeah, I'd love to share some fun facts about me. So, some personal things. I am in Australia. So, you're going to tell that from my accent if most of your audience is in the US or Canada. And in Australia, it's winter right now. So I'm fully rugged up and recording on a Saturday morning. And I've got my 2-year-old son downstairs with my husband. So hoping for no noise coming up here. And I've got another baby boy on the way as well. So that's a fun little fact about me.
Wow, congratulations on baby number 2.
Thank you.
When are you due?
End of this year, so not too long to go.
Oh, wow. That's exciting, though.
Yeah, exciting and scary.
I've heard mothers say so often that you just don't know how you're going to love another baby just as much as you love your first.
That's
Are you
so
worried
true.
about that?
Yeah, that is so true. I've definitely thought of that. I'm like, I just don't understand how another child I can feel the same. But apparently you do. You just grow another heart. That's what they say.
I love that. That's amazing. All right, so let's dive into this. Let's start at the beginning. What was your journey leading up to creating your business and your podcast?
Yeah. All right. Well, interesting that I just mentioned my son because he was really a pivotal part of that journey. But I'll start a little bit before that because really my journey kind of started when I was a little girl, right? So I was born overseas in Europe, and in the country that I was born in, a civil war broke out when I was just 1. And so that meant that my family and I got displaced. We had to move out of our home, and we kind of lived in refugee shelters, abandoned homes, off like food coupons for like many years. And when I was 9, we came here on refugee visas to Australia. And so coming to Australia with like migrant parents, they had this very migrant mentality, which was study hard, work hard, get us a good, safe job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. I did my best to follow that path, and I studied hard, like I got great marks at school. I kind of put my head down and I went to law school after school. And straight out of law school, as soon as I graduated, I got a job at one of the top tier firms in Australia. And so in Australia, we've got like 6 top law firms, and they're the kind of be all and end all. And it was a really big, proud moment for me to get a job at this big firm as a corporate lawyer. And from the outside, it looked fabulous. It looked like I was living the life. It looked like I had this prestigious, safe job and this great salary. And it came with a lot of benefits and, all of this kind of outside shiny stuff. But on the inside, I was completely miserable because working as a lawyer is very different, surprise, surprise, to what you see on TV and what you see in shows like Suits, because it was just very, very long hours, a lot of pressure. You're constantly on call. Days off are kind of celebrated. It's a very rare, and even a day off is never a full day off. It's just a couple of hours here and there that you get to yourself. And so I found myself in this hamster wheel of working all the time and absolutely being miserable. And it was only when I got pregnant with my son, this was about 5 years into my law career, and I was kind of climbing the corporate ladder at that point and really like up for a promotion the next year. And that was, seen to be like a very prestigious promotion. But when I got pregnant, I went on maternity leave, and I remember the moment when I gave birth to my son in hospital, and I thought, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I chasing down this road that's not leading to fulfillment and happiness? And why am I giving up my life for this? Because one day I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be 70 years old, and I'm going to look back and I'm not going to be happy that I have this, sign on my door saying partner law firm. And I'm not going to be telling my kids like, yeah, I really, helped all of these companies at my law job. Like, that's not going to bring me fulfillment. So I need to do what I want to do and what my soul is calling. And my soul always called me to entrepreneurship, but it was never considered a safe path by my parents. And so I never risked it. I never had the guts to do it. But after I had my son, that was very pivotal. Something happens when you go through a big life transformation, like having a child, and you realize, wait, life is so short. And, like, I'm now a role model for someone else, and I want my kids to really like live their life with true fulfillment and not just chase down corporate ladders because that's what society says you should do. And so yeah, that's what I did. 2 weeks after that, I started my business as a brand new mum with a newborn. And it was a really rocky road, to be honest, because that first year in business was really, really hard for me. And I basically made no money. I think I made like a total of $3,000 the entire year, and it all went to expenses. So it was like nothing. And I really struggled, and I was very close to giving up. And this was around the end of my maternity leave where I had to make a decision like, hey, am I going back to law or am I going to pursue this? And, the obvious decision or the safe decision did not seem to be quit law and go back to like continue with this business because it wasn't making money. I was gaining no traction. But I just knew I was going to make it work. I knew that this is what I had to do. And so I really trusted my intuition. And I sat down with my husband one morning. It was Christmas, and we were just sitting beneath the Christmas tree and sipping coffee. And he said, well, you have to go into the office next week to let them know if you're going to go back. And I said, yeah, I'm not going back. And he laughed and he was like, I know. And I was like, yeah, I know you're going to think I'm crazy because this isn't like the business isn't doing well and it's going nowhere, but I just know I'll make it work. And he was like, yeah, no, I know you will. Like, we'll make it work. And so that was the beginning of my journey, because from there is when really things changed. From there is when I really decided to buckle down, get really like serious about sales, when I decided to give it my all. And that's really when my business started to pick up. And from there is when I really found success in the online world. And yeah, that brought me to here.
There is so much to unpack in everything you just said. That could be like a whole other podcast or two. Wow. Like, that's That's an incredible like story and journey.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very, very interesting time of my life and one of like a lot of big decisions being made, but
Mhm.
ultimately very, very thankful that I did choose those decisions and to stay on this path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Suits, being a lawyer, I mean, obviously it's not captivating exactly what that role entails, but I remember watching the show because I was obsessed with that. And I would be like, do these people ever go home? Do they ever have a life? Like, do they just live at the office, go home and sleep for 3 hours and then come back?
I think that's probably the only part of Suits that really did portray law, accurately, where they really are at the office all the time. That was probably the only part that I was like, yes, but they make it look very glamorous to be at
I
the
know,
office
right?
at like 11 p.m. And in reality, you're like, screw this. I just want to go home and sleep.
I bet. Yes, the office was absolutely gorgeous, so obviously they probably didn't mind as much hanging out there and having some drinks.
That's right.
All right. Now, when you decided to try something new to build a business 2 weeks after having your child, which, like, hello, that's crazy in itself. Like, I don't even know how you had the capacity to even think about starting a business at that point. But obviously, you're a very strong woman. And I would love to know, how did the idea for your business come to be? Like, how did you decide that this is what you wanted to create?
Yeah, so to be completely honest, I think I did skip a lot of backstory in terms of what was going on in my head for many years before I quit. So it wasn't like I just quit and then decided, okay, now what do I do? All right, I'll start a business. The truth was that for many years, even while working as a lawyer, I had this idea of being an entrepreneur, of going into online coaching. And I think I discovered the online coaching world just by I think I was on Instagram and I found someone who was like a coach, and I was like, this isn't a real job. Like, you can't make money off this. Of course, my ego was like, no, 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 no. But the more I looked into it, the more I was like, well, yes, people are doing this as their life career. You totally can make money, and and it is the fulfilling thing. Like, it is something that you want to do. And so I knew for a very long time that I wanted to start an online coaching business. And what I actually started as was not as a sales coach, but I actually started as a manifestation coach. So more of like a life manifestation coach. And that was just really born from the fact that I, for many years, was practicing manifestation in my own life and manifested some really cool things. And so I thought, well, what is my expertise? What can I teach other people? And that was it. And so I decided to start a coaching business in that. And then very shortly after, I pivoted into sales.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I love that you started with manifestation. It's such a great practice and highly recommended to anybody listening right now. It's made all the difference in my life as well.
Yeah, it's like the best. And I mean, to be honest, I say to my clients today, yes, like you're getting sales coaching, but really what you're getting is manifestation coaching, because it's such a core part of what I teach, no matter
Mhm.
what who I'm coaching or what I'm teaching, whether it's a course, a client, a program, doesn't matter. For me, that is such a foundational part of my business. And so I teach it to this very day.
I love that. Now, what was your process in building this business during that first year? And what were your biggest lessons from that period?
Yeah, so I think in the first year, the big kind of way that I started was I started to invest straight away into coaches and courses. So from the get go, I knew that I had two options. And, I was a new mom. So, like you said, time was short. I had a newborn. And I knew from straight away that I could either spend a lot of time on YouTube and Googling and trying to figure this out on my own, or I could invest with someone and get them to give me the shortcut, get them to show me the way and lead me. And I knew that was going to save me time. And for me, that was worth every cent. And so straight away, I invested in a course that kind of was like a foundational business course, and then a coach. And in that first year, the big focus, I mean, to be honest, I made a lot of mistakes that first year. And the biggest probably mistakes that I made were really focusing on all these different things that weren't going to get me clients. So a lot of my focus was on like making my feed look pretty and getting the perfect aesthetic on my Instagram feed and finding the perfect quote to post and all of these kind of things that were just red herrings, right? They were distracting me from the real thing that I needed to be doing in business, which was making sales. And, I say sales are the lifeblood of business. And I wasn't focusing on sales. I was focusing on, finding the perfect shade of pink to match with the other perfect shade of pink for my Instagram graphic. And so those were like some really big lessons that I learned. It was that in the early days of your business, especially when you're trying to build it up to get some consistent income coming in, the only thing that matters is having a solid product and making sales, selling. That is the only thing that you need to be focusing on. And the other things are just additions. And so once I started doing that is when I started seeing success. Before that, it was just kind of running on a hamster wheel, not getting much results at all.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. There's a lot of learnings in that first year for sure, and that's kind of where you make all those mistakes and you learn from them, and it helps you grow. But I love that you invested in a course and a coach so that you could like skip all that googling time because we've all been there and it's painful. But that's definitely something that I highly recommend as well, is to take that opportunity to invest in yourself and in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So before we dive into sales, I'd love to hear about any productivity tips that you have that help you stay organized and on top of things in your business while you also have, your relationship and a child and a baby on the way and everything else that's going on in your life.
Yeah, so for sure, productivity is such a big part of my life because I'm busy. I've got a toddler, I've got, my husband, and, trying to spend time with friends, family, like everyone, right?
Hmm.
And so, and I actually only work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. That is the way I've built my business. So, being productive in those 4 hours is everything. And some of the big things that really help me to stay productive is that number one is I only schedule calls on 2 days a week, right? So client calls only happen 2 days a week, which is my calls day. And I know ahead of time that I need to be in the mindset of coaching and calls. And those are the days that I am, kind of working inside the business. Now, the other 2 days that I'm working, there are the days that I don't have any scheduled calls. And those are the days that I work on my business. So content and emails or recording my podcast or anything like that. And so I like to structure my week in knowing what I'm going to be doing. So for example, I'll have Mondays as my CEO day where I check in on all my funnels and I'm checking in on my bank accounts and kind of reconciling things and just really planning, taking time to reflect, plan for the week, setting some goals. And then Tuesday is a cool day. And then Wednesday is a content day. So on Wednesdays, I'll create content, I'll record my podcast, really get on top of that. And then Thursday is half a day of calls and then a kind of wrap up day to wrap up the week. So that really, really helps keep me on track, and just knowing what is, what each day helps me to plan ahead and be really, really productive in those times that I am working, so that outside of that, I can really, spend time with my family and not be stressed about something in the business, knowing it's just going to get done.
Mm. I love that you've broken it out like that. And I love that you only work 4 days. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a big, big thing about, starting my business for me. So my number one value is freedom. And so I always said, if I'm going to build a business, I'm going to do it on my terms, the way I want to build it. Like I'm not going to build it the same way that I would have worked in a corporate career, working like 18-hour days. I'm going to build it. And I didn't always work 4 hours. God, like in the first year, definitely not. but I did scale it and refine it to the point that I am able to work 4 hours, and I'm very thankful for that.
Love that. Now, in your opinion, what are the mindset blocks that deter us from showing up and selling or promoting our products and services?
Ooh, okay, where do we start?
There's so
um,
many.
so many. And, it's crazy, especially for women. They show up so much more. And I see this so often. But I would say, some of the big ones is, well, I don't want to be annoying to my audience. I don't want to constantly come across as selling to them. And I get that there is a fine line between, just pushing a product, which can get annoying, right, for the audience. But the truth is, most people that say this, they're not doing that at all, not even close, right? They're barely showing up, barely talking about their offer, barely selling it at all. And they're not doing it out of fear that they will suddenly turn into this like crazed used car salesman, which is just not the case. And so we're being instilled with this kind of tabooness around selling when the whole point of our business is to sell. That is what your business is here to do. It is to sell products and services. And, I'll say to people like, Amazon doesn't apologize for selling. They sell all day, every day. And, Apple doesn't apologize for selling. They sell all day, every day. You can log onto their website at any time, purchase products. You see ads and they're promoting their products. For what? So you can buy them, right? And when you buy something that you love from, say Apple, so you buy a new iPhone, you don't go in there being annoyed at Apple for charging you money for it. You're like, thank you so much, right? You come
Yeah.
in with the like, this is great. I'm so happy I get to have this phone and it's going to serve me. And so we think that the kind of mindset block tied into that is that if we sell to someone, they're somehow going to be worse off. They're somehow going to now have less because they're giving you their money. And, we don't consider the fact that it's an exchange of services. They are exchanging money, but they're getting something in return. And so I encourage people to think about sales as a win-win versus a win-lose, right? Someone buying from you, they're not losing out, they're winning. Their life is being enriched. They're getting something in return. And so, your customers should be thankful and excited when they buy from you versus feeling like they've lost something. And that is usually the case, but we just have these kind of blocks in our head thinking that that's how people will feel, so we don't sell to them. So, so those are some of the biggest blocks. And then also there's a lot of blocks around, scarcity, where scarcity comes in, where we think that, oh, we can't raise our prices because people can't afford it. And we usually tie in what we can afford or what we would have maybe paid for at the time we were starting our business or whatever stage entrepreneur you're selling to, versus thinking about the fact that, it's so relative. What's expensive to me is not expensive to Bill Gates, for example, right? It's peanuts. And so there is a customer at every price point, and it's really just about you deciding what price point you are going to sell at and who you want to have as your customer, and really understanding there is abundance, there is no scarcity, there is enough for everyone, and you can always find a buyer for your offer if you can package it and you can sell it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Now, what about when you're starting out? You work through these mindset blocks and you're making like $1,000, maybe $3,000 a month. What type of mindset blocks do you feel like you need to work through to get to 10, 20, 30, 50K months?
Yeah, I think at that point, for sure. So when you kind of overcome the initial I can't sell and you do start to sell, the scaling part really does get hindered when one, we get scared of raising our prices. So you become capped out at your prices eventually. And so if you don't raise your prices, you will just remain capped at that point. So that's one thing that gets people trapped in a certain income level because they think, well, I just can't possibly raise my prices. I possibly can't charge that much. And to that I say, why not? Why the heck not? I know entrepreneurs that charge at every single level, and there's customers at every level. So, that's the first thing. And the second bit is really expanding the product suite. There is a lot of fear around expanding because we get comfortable. We're like, well, I can sell one-on-one coaching, and that is great. People buy it. But then when it comes to creating other offers that will free up your time and kind of really scale it to, say, a group model, people will get worried and scared because they haven't done it before. And so there is that block around, I can sell this, but I can't sell that. And, that's obviously absolutely not true, because if you can sell one thing, you can sell other things as well, right? And so those are the big ones that I find popping up in clients that are looking to really scale their business from just like kind of the 5K-ish mark, anywhere up to the 5K-ish, to really go to the 10K and beyond.
Okay. Here's another mindset block that might have come up for people tuning in today, or even yourself as you grew your business. But did you ever worry about not being able to get your clients the results that you promised through your program or your courses or your service that you're offering them? And then how did you overcome that fear?
Yes, absolutely. And you're so right. That is definitely a mindset block that comes up at every stage, in particular when you start. Actually, I really think it is at every stage. I really do. And it's definitely come up for me, and it's come up for my clients in every niche, in every single possible niche that I could think of. There is this block. And for me, the way I overcame that and the way I really reframed that thinking, and the same way that I teach others to do it, is when you are approaching coaching, I do not think of coaching as something, and you should never be, like the lawyer in me wants to come out now and say this, but you should never be guaranteeing results anyway, right? So it's not really about the results. It's really about what is it the person is learning in their toolkit. And the results are not something you can create for someone else. You can give them the roadmap, you can give them the pathway, you can do everything, but like it's like that saying, right? You can only lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. And so there are so many variables to go into people not getting results. And I truly believe that business is a puzzle and it's kind of a game. And I don't think you can ever fail as long as you are willing to stay at it. Like, I can't see a failure. Even if you have, say, a launch that doesn't do as you expected, it's not a failure. You've learned so much. Now you go back out there and you try again. And that's what I say to my clients when they're like, oh, my launch didn't go how I wanted it. I'm like, well, that's fine, right? And so I don't see that as a failure in a client. I'm like, that just means this thing didn't try. Let's go back. Let's fix this up. Let's fix messaging, lead generation, sales process, packaging, whatever it is. And so, not putting that pressure on yourself to have every single person that you work with get these extreme results. And, the other thing is results come in different ways. They don't always come in monetary. Like, obviously depends what your niche is, but I'll have mindset clients that are like, well, I just don't feel like my client transformations are valuable because they're not getting monetary results. They're getting inner transformations. And of course, that's crazy because, what's more valuable than transforming yourself from the inside? So yeah, that's how I think of it. And curious if you've had this, and if you have a perspective on this.
Oh God, that is still something that I struggle with at times. Like, I don't think it'll ever go away completely. But I mean, it happens, especially when you're like launching a new service or a new product. And the one that I just launched in June, I think it was, I obviously had that. I was like, crap, like what if I'm not able to get them the results that they're hoping for following the end of our partnership together or something like that, just because given the service that I'm providing them, I'm like, what if we're not able to get everything done that they think that they want to get done? Like, there's only so much time that we have together, and it's just like, what if it's not what they envision at the end? And it's a worry, right? Because people are giving you money for something and you want to make sure that you're serving them well. And
Yeah, that's right. And I think like there is an aspect though where you can't completely deflect your role as a coach or a service provider, because there is, of course, a part where like you are responsible. And the way I say it is, you're responsible for what you can do. You're responsible to show up as the best coach or service provider for your client. You're responsible to do what you said you would do. You're responsible to, if they're struggling, to actually reach out and offer further assistance, help, and like really, do as much as you can, not just kind of sit back and go, well, it's up to you, too bad, because that's not that's not how we want to operate our business. But then
Hmm.
there is only so much you can do. And I think that probably a big part is just also really clarifying expectations at the beginning of a client, coach, or service provider relationship. Because I think the biggest trap is when expectations are not clarified and someone comes in expecting maybe like a certain result, and they think like it's just going to be really easy, and maybe they don't understand the amount of work that goes into it. So just clarifying expectations just saves everyone so much headache and time and heartache.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's dive into sales. So, how do you promote a product or a service without those pushy, sleazy sales tactics that everybody hates?
Yes. Oh gosh. So, I like you said at the beginning of this podcast, that is kind of the big thing in my business, is teaching the non-sleazy sales and non-pushy sales. And it's so important to me because I know at the beginning I got pitched so much when I was starting out. And I mean, I still do today. And sometimes I just want to screenshot these DMs that I get and share them
Hmm.
for like what not to do. And it just feels so gross and yuck, and you don't feel like a real person because it just feels like someone just wants to take your money, and it's not a nice feeling. So, the way I teach sales, and that a way I would say to really promote your products, is the foundation of sales is know, like, and trust. And so sales are salesy when there is no like and trust. When the person doesn't like you, maybe they don't even know who the hell you are. That's like the cold DM. And when there is no trust, right? And so those three elements are the key to being built up before you pitch anyone, or even if you're just pitching online. And when you skip those steps is when sales are very salesy. So, a classic example of skipping those steps is a cold DM. If you're just cold DMing someone being like, hey, do you want to scale your business to 10K months? I can help you. They don't know who you are. They don't particularly like you because you haven't given them a reason. There's nothing more unlikable than just a cold pitch. So, you're definitely failing on that end. And they definitely don't have a reason to trust you. There's no relationship being built up there. So, when it comes to personal pitching and personal selling, the key is to build up a relationship with the person and to understand what their problem is, and if you can actually help them with the problem, and then to pitch based on that. And when it comes to public selling, it's really the same thing, warming up your audience enough to build the know, like, and trust factor, so that by the time you are promoting a service or a product, it doesn't feel salesy, because you are serving your audience through that. You're serving them by giving them and offering them a solution that they need. And I say that sales, the kind of analogy that I give for sales, non-salesy sales, is instead of, thinking about, you go to a restaurant, or say you go to a party and someone just comes and they're like trying to shove food down your mouth, which is like, I don't want to eat this food, right? That feels very salesy and awkward. I think about the waiter that walks around with like canapes, and he's just walking around and has canapes on a platter, and they offer you the canape. Like, do you want to have a little bite? No, yes, all right. And then move on, right? So you're making your offer available to people. You're giving them the choice whether they want to buy it, instead of forcing them into it, making them feel pressured, or making them feel like they're going to be less better off if they don't get it, or any of those, manipulative kind of tactics that people use in the online world.
Mm, I love everything that you just said. That was so like bang on the head. I love that you talked about the cold DMs, which I get and I can feel it when they're getting to something, right? Like
Yeah.
they start asking you what you do. And I'm like, did you not read my bio?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yes.
why do I have to tell you again? Did you not look at my profile at all? And then, of course, you're trying to be nice. So you're like, what do you do? So it's like that stupid back and forth. And then I'm just like, I know you're coming here for something. Just spit it out already.
Exactly. Like when someone says, "Hey, what kind of coaching do you do?" I want to just like die. I'm like, this is I just it's unbelievable. Like you all you have to do is read my bio, and the fact that you haven't and that you're asking this typical kind of weird opener question, like if it wasn't obvious, fine, but it literally says I coach these type of clients to get them this result in my bio. And yeah, it's just you just know straight away. And like I just wonder what their rate of success is, because in my eyes, and like just even really like sales science tells us that those types of sales tactics, that you really have to like get through a lot of people. Like you have to be messaging like, I don't know, 200 people a day to maybe have one say yes. And like, why? Why waste your time doing that when there is a better way where you can build up relationships and convert so many more people? And, they feel good about the sale. They're excited to buy from you versus just feeling like really shitty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you're about to do that, maybe make some conversation on some of the posts. Reply to their stories, kind of warm them up to you before you start pitching to them. And I love the fact that you brought up the analogy of, canapes at a restaurant and how a waiter will come around and he'll have a serving tray of different canapes that you can try. And it's like a teaser, a kind of look, a sneak peek as to what you can expect from the food at that restaurant. And you can go ahead and try some. It's totally up to you if you want to or not. It's not being forced on you. But if you enjoy it, if it's something that you like, then you have the option to take it further and look at the full menu, which is like your services and stuff like that. I love that whole kind of analogy, and it's so spot on.
Yes, exactly. Exactly how I think of non-salesy sales. The power is in your hands as the buyer, whether you say yes or no. And I really talk about this concept of empowering the buyer. So you're not empowered to say yes or no if you don't have enough information about the product, if you don't know if it's going to help you or not, right? But when you have the information, when you have all of that and it's in your hands, then you feel empowered. And then that's where your role as a salesperson stops, right? It stops at that point where you've given everything you can give, and it stops short of that pressure of like, well, you only have 10 minutes to make a decision, or, like I only have two spots. And if you really don't, like if you do have two spots or whatever, great, you should say that, right? Like the person should know that there are limited spots available. But, it's all about being in integrity and communicating it in a way that's empowering versus pressuring. So yes, absolutely. It really is about not having the other person feeling pressured into a sale, but really just giving them all the information so they can make an empowered decision, whether it's a yes or no.
Oh, I love that. That's such a better approach. And I definitely recommend everybody to take that, because there's nothing worse than a sleazy sales approach. I can just guarantee that. It turns people right off from even having any further relations with you, most likely.
Yeah, exactly right. And it just hurts your business in the long run. It might give you some short term results. A couple of people might say yes, but in the long run, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. Now, what are some common sales objectives that we should plan to overcome? And then how do we do so successfully?
Yeah, so some common sales objections, the big ones are really time. I don't have the time, and it comes in many shapes and forms. I don't have the money, or it's too expensive, and also comes in many shapes and forms. And the third one is no trust, right? Someone doesn't trust you. So it's either they're saying, I don't have the time to do it, I don't have the money, or I don't trust you. And they're not going to ever say I don't trust you outright. So that's going to sound very different. It's going to sound like, I'll think about it, or maybe I'm not sure this is for me, and all of these other kind of ways they communicate that. And so, my approach to sales objections is to overcome them ahead of time before they even come up. And versus, on, say, a sales call or during a sales conversation, I don't want to be convincing anyone that this is the right thing for them. And I come from a place where I trust that people can make the right decisions for themselves. And, if money is an issue, that they can make a decision that money is an issue. But so, for really when it comes to those objections, I would say that the key is to overcome them ahead of time. And that really means that in your content and even in the beginning of a sales conversation, before someone brings up the objection, you are bringing it up and you're overcoming it. And I find that to be the best approach, because then the person is coming into your world and they're making an empowered decision, having all the information, and even just things like disclosing your prices, not, hiding them until the very last second. So all of those things are really helpful for just not getting hit with any sales objections.
Those are great tips. Now, what do you have available to support your community?
Yeah, so I would love to give you guys something for free. And these are free story sales scripts that are really going to help you sell on your stories in a non-salesy way. So I have an amazing freebie, which essentially gives you 3 different scripts on how you can show up on your stories, and 3 different ways to sell that is not just hardcore pitching and being like, here, buy my stuff. And they're kind of like slide-by-slide scripts, and they're so helpful. And I've had so many people DM me and say, hey, I just signed a client using your free scripts. And so they're available in my link in bio on my Instagram, which is also where you can find me at Milana Sarenac. But I would also be more than happy to give you a link to them to Jessica, and you can put them in your show notes.
Absolutely, I will definitely do that.
And yeah, I also, I have a podcast, so Magnetic with Milana Sarenac, where I really talk about sales and focus on that topic a lot. So that's another amazing way you can come and connect with me. And I love to hear from people that are listening to the podcast as well. And ultimately, I have a paid program called Empower Sales Academy, where we really go deep into sales and we really break down how to sell in a non-salesy way. And I teach you how to do all of this step by step, how to build, attention online and capture that attention of your audience, how to build trust, and ultimately how to close a sale without being sleazy.
Amazing. I love that. Now, I will include all of Milana's information in the show notes so that you can access her and her program easily. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much for giving us access to that freebie. That is amazing. I will make sure to include that as well.
Awesome. So happy to do that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Milana, for taking the time today to join us and for sharing your entrepreneurial journey, but also for your expertise and incredible insights on how we can sell out our offers and overcome the roadblocks that come with it. I know those tuning in today are going to have many, many takeaways, so I so appreciate everything that you've shared with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.